Welcome to the tutorial on the Fruity Pad Controller, or FPC. In this tutorial, we're going to discuss ways we can enhance your use of the FPC and take a look at some tricks that we can use to get a better sound out of it. So to start out with, I'm going to go ahead and load in the FPC. And right now I just have the default kit loaded. Now when I first came across the FPC, I'll be honest, I hated it. I didn't understand it, I just thought it was like a drum machine, and I didn't take the time to really look into it. Now it's really all I use for drums, as it makes my workflow so much faster and more precise. All it is a pad controller that triggers samples and has a few parameters we can edit on each pad. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of some things that we can do to get a better sound and be more creative with this powerful tool. Now in this first example, I want to take a look at using loops as samples in the FPC. What we can do is load some samples instead of one-hit drum samples and then play around with it a bit to come up with a new sound. So I'll go through and load some loops. And actually first, before I do that, let me go in here and we'll get rid of everything here on this side stick. Also here. Okay, so I just got the side stick and the kick drum cleared out. So we'll go in here, we'll look for a bass line. Let's just try this. So I'll go ahead and take that, we'll put it on the side stick, and then we'll go and look for a drum loop. For that, let me go up here. Try something. Okay, so we've got the drum loop loaded on the kick drum, and we've got the bass sample loaded on the side stick. Now what we're going to do, since this bass line isn't going to be in time with this 100 beats per minute that I've got it set on, we're going to try playing around with the attack down here and see if we can't play around with it. First, let's go in here to the piano roll and we'll go ahead and set this up here with the kick drum sample going. Now when I play this, you'll see what I was talking about how this won't fit. So you can see that's kind of overlapping a little bit. So what we'll do is go in here and play around with this attack a little bit. And I know it keeps on cutting out that drum sample whenever we make adjustments. That's the FPC going there, so I can't really help that. But you can see how using this, adjusting the attack, we can come up with a neat little funky rhythm there. And keep in mind that we still have the other pads that we can play with. So for instance, if you wanted to put a hi-hat in there, we could do like And also remember, when using this technique, you do have the pitch change knob here for each pad. So if you wanted to try to do some time stretching, you could also do that to make some of these loops fit in there a little bit better. And also you see that using this technique can also save space, but at the same time creates some totally new grooves, so that way you don't have to have multiple instances of the sample or anything loaded in there as well. And honestly, in essence, we could build, everything right here from the FPC. So again, for saving space and time and everything, it comes in handy. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Now this next example I want to show you involves the same principle. We're going to take some non-percussive samples and load them into the FPC to create a different sound. In the last example we used musical loops, but in this one I just want to use musical one-hits. So we'll go ahead and go through and look for some here in the samples that I have. Okay, for instance, so we'll go in and delete all this out. I'm just going to put this at 115. And then all we're going to do is load these samples one by one. Actually, let me go back. And then we can just load up a groove really quick here and take a listen. And you can see how that created a different kind of sound. We could also load drum samples in on top of each of these and blend them to create totally new drum sounds, like a snare combined with the horn or a hi-hat with the keyboard. And speaking of blending, I want to go through and show an example of layering sounds to blend different samples. For instance, in this example, let's say I want to get a kick sound that's deep, like an 808, is robust and round, like a 909, but also has like the top end click, like a rock bass drum. So let me go ahead and reload this. I'll go ahead and clear out all the bass drum. So we'll go back into our samples. And this time I'll just go into the drum hits. And again, like I said, we want to look for samples that are corresponding to those different characteristics that we want the kick to have so that we can blend them all together. We could go in and say, and then for the 909, we could say, like that. And then for the top end, we could do that. So now what we want to do is blend these together so that each of the characteristics is present, but none of them are dominating the entire sound. Just going to go in and put those down. And now I'm going to go through and adjust these different settings and see if we can't get a sound that we're looking for. And I think that pretty much captures what we're looking for. It has a deep bottom end that doesn't overpower. It has a thick lower mid-range that's punchy, and it also has a nice top end that doesn't eat away at the low end. And this is great because on their own, none of these samples would have been right for what we were looking for. We can also do the same with the snare. Let's say that I want the snare to have like the flat slap of a 909, but also I want the crispness and fat bottom end of a rock snare. So again, we can just go into the samples. Actually, I'm gonna clear this out first. So for the 909, we could look for something. And then we could look for and then for the fat bottom end type sound, that'll work. So again, we'll just go through and adjust these. I'm going to go ahead and solo this channel. And also keep in mind that this can be done on all pads and with any combination. And remember to set the active range area down here to make sure that all the samples are playing despite the velocity. The last example I want to take a look at involves using multi-samples on a pad to create music. Now again, we're talking about using non-percussive sounds to create new grooves. So I'm going to go in here and delete this, and we'll reload it one more time. Go ahead and open my samples back up here. Now for this example, I want to find some samples that are going to be one-hit musical samples that we can arrange on a pad, and we'll adjust the active range section for each so that the velocity will determine what's being played. So we'll go through and look for some samples. I know I've got stuff here. So what I'll do is just load all of these on the side stick. Then what I'm going to do is use this spread even function, and that way from bottom to top it will spread out the velocity to determine what's being played at what velocity. We'll go into our piano roll. I'll just draw out some notes here. And then what we can do is, I'm just going to randomly go through and adjust the velocity. And to make sure that this bottom one gets heard, I'm going to bring this out a little bit. Do that for this as well. So you can see that even with a randomized setup like that, we can get some pretty cool results. And if you really wanted to get technical about it, you could go in and set up each pad to have different notes from different instruments and write an entire project just using the FPC. It would be difficult, but if anything, it would be a challenge. So we've taken a look at how we can use the FPC to create some new sounds, and we've looked at some unconventional uses for it. I think that the FPC is one of the greatest tools in FL Studio and is definitely worth the time to look into. So as always, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.